Streakers, there is a big difference between conflict and contention. When you think about contention, or when I think about contention, what I'm thinking about is riling someone up, getting them into a state of anger, or being angry yourself, contending against them in such a way that it becomes personal. It becomes something that you go after them. Whereas you look at conflict, and conflict is going to happen. Now, I know that you may think that I'm straining at gnats or making something a little bit more complex than it really needs to be. However, what I would ask you is this. Think about conflict as a rough stone that is rolling and getting the edges knocked off. Every time it comes in contact with something, there's conflict. And that conflict creates the process by which that stone becomes smooth. Well, good morning, Streakers. This is Jeff Downs, and this is your Streaking Podcast for today. As I have been considering the difference between contention and conflict, and yesterday I talked a little bit about this in the sense that contention is something that you get stirred up, you get riled up. As I look at modern day media or news outlets, most of their, somewhere in there, they look at stirring you up to anger. And why? Because something intoxicating about that. When you have conflict and you report on the conflict, and you look at it and say, the conflict is something that causes us all to grow. In other words, it's not personal. I'm not attacking. I'm not going after someone. What I'm doing is looking at an idea. And with that idea, I'm considering what that idea and collaborating with whoever to make that idea even better. One of the best books that I've ever read is by Ed Catmull called Creativity, Inc. If you haven't read it, it's a great one. It's about really the formation of Pixar. In that book, they talk about making blockbuster movies, Toy Story and others, where they have the opportunity at Pixar to make the movie the best it can be. When they started out making these movies and talking about the scripts, they'd get in a room, and John Lasseter, along with Ed Catmull and many others, would sit around a square table. And that square table, everyone started to have a hierarchy of who could sit at the table itself and who sat on the outside. Well, Ed Catmull and John Lasseter, they broke it to pieces and said, no, we want everyone's idea. Everyone had a place at the table. And from a square to a circle, think about the Knights of the Round Table, everyone had their say in it. But what would then happen is the person that had the idea for whatever the movie was, the scene, or whatever it is that they're debating would throw it out in the middle of the table. Now, at that moment, something important happened. You took away the person from the idea. Sometimes we can get so married to our idea that it becomes a part of who we are, rather than looking at the idea as an independent entity of itself. You throw it out in the middle of the table, and everyone has an opportunity to attack the idea. In other words, there's conflict. Everyone talks about what it is that would progress the story or make it even better. They would look at it and say, how can we together, our collaboration, make this particular story, scene, moment even better? That's conflict, and it's good conflict, and we're going to have conflict in life, and you're going to have conflict in life. The critical part of conflict is learning how to talk about it without getting into contention, without getting angry, upset, stirred up, to being in the place where you can say, I am able to look at what the idea is, and all of us together come to the place where it's the best idea. Not just an idea, but the best idea, where we divorce ourselves from the idea. We take and put ourselves apart from it such that people, everyone around us, can help us make it better. This is a difficult thing to do. Why? Because we each have ego. And our ego, well, it has a loud voice and it works on us all the time. But if we can set aside the ego, well, and I guess I'd look at it this way. It's not even set aside the ego. It's actively develop the skill to set aside ego. And how do you do that? Well, that's where streaking comes in. You knew I'd get there eventually, didn't you? One of the streaks that Jamie has that's quite significant is to receive feedback, search out or receive feedback at least one time a week. Searching for and looking for the feedback is developing a skill to be able to put down ego, to put down those things that would prevent us from progressing, to take and set aside that which would prevent our progress. You see, when you're searching for and looking for feedback, you're looking to increase in the areas where you want to get better. You see the conflict because honestly, when you have feedback, there's conflict that's involved there. So looking for and considering and doing what you need to do to get the feedback will help you develop the skill to be able to put down the ego. One of the things that we do in sales often in my profession, as far as sales is concerned, is we check our ego at the door. What we're doing is basically setting aside that which we think or know is right and listening to whoever the client is or customer. Now let's apply that into our everyday lives. Whenever working with any one of our 7 children, setting ego aside is critical to learning together. And being able to receive feedback from any one of those children gives me the opportunity to progress and learn. And believe me, there's been a lot of opportunity to progress and to learn. In fact, just this last weekend, we had a little incident that I think I'll talk about a little bit tomorrow, where I had to check my ego, listen, and be able to give feedback and receive feedback from this particular child. But I'll talk about that tomorrow. So developing the skill to get feedback will then essentially put down what the ego is, allow us to use conflict to be able to become that polished, smooth stone. I think about those old-time rock rollers. I don't know if you've ever had one of those where you put a whole bunch of stones in, put some polish in, let it turn for who knows how many days, and out comes all these polished rocks. Well, that's what we're trying to do in life, is become this beautiful, polished rock. And it takes a little bit of time and energy to make that happen. If you want to learn more about streaking, download the streaking app, go to the Learn page, and you can learn how to set successful streaks to progress in your life and how to overcome conflict. If you want to reach out to me, you always can at Jeffrey, Jeffery, at thestreakingapp.com. Also, take a chance to share this podcast and subscribe so that you get the notification when any new podcast comes out. Until we talk again, keep streaking.